This girl skips school almost every day and lives on discarded food, yet she always shows up on time whenever there is an exam, but because she smells bad from head to toe, she is shunned by her classmates, and even the teacher grows impatient and treats her differently.
Oh, give me the test, Liz. There's no point taking that.
No, I'll take it.
But you've been here, what, 3 times this month?
I'll take it. It doesn't look that hard.
Seeing how stubborn the girl is, the teacher decides to back off for now, figuring she can always scold her twice as hard once she fails. However, after school, the teacher's attitude takes a sudden turn, because this child who skips classes every day unexpectedly scores a perfect 100. The teacher is curious how the girl managed a perfect score, and she calmly explains that she has read many books, most of them gifts salvaged from trash piles by a neighbor who collects recyclables. Hearing this, the teacher smiles warmly, then pulls out a pile of old clothes for her to change into, advising her to pay attention to personal hygiene while also warning her to attend school every day. Otherwise, the matter will be reported to child services. What the teacher does not know is that her lack of cleanliness is not her fault at all, but because the bathtub at home, once meant to be clean, has long been filled with filthy water, and although her parents are physically able, they do nothing about it, because they have lost their sense of care and responsibility to substance abuse. The father has lost his original warmth and concern, burying himself in books and quiz shows on television, while the mother has suffered severe mental illness due to long-term use and is nearly blind. The small amount of child assistance they receive each month is entirely used by her mother to indulge herself. At times like this, Liz, despite having both parents alive, lives like a homeless orphan, relying on scraps from garbage piles to ease her hunger and misery, while helplessly watching her parents walk away after buying illegal substances. When the assistance money is completely consumed by addiction, the mother's mental illness fully surfaces, and the father's only role also appears right on schedule. He contacts a local rehabilitation agency, has his wife given a sedative injection, and then has her taken away to a treatment center for several months. Even though Liz loves her mother deeply and does not want to be separated from her, powerless as she is, she can only watch the ambulance slowly disappear. Bright sunlight just 20 meters away feels within reach, yet it can never illuminate her tragic fate. Fortunately, the books given by Aunt Eva next door become the only comfort in her bleak life, and with the help of a set of encyclopedias, she easily earns a perfect score and wins the teacher's approval. When she proudly shows the perfect test paper to Aunt Eva, the familiar words of encouragement arrive right on time.
You don't want to be an idiot. And you keep it up now, you hear me? Now your mother's back.
Her mother's return after 2 months fills her with joy, and the happiness of reunion seems to cover every step of the staircase. But when she eagerly takes out the test paper she is so proud of, her mother only sighs with a troubled expression, because not only does she have no gift as a reward, but during those 2 months in treatment, she was also diagnosed with a serious illness. Now she stands helplessly between clarity and numbness, unable to fall, yet unable to break free. So, in order to survive, she decides to take both daughters to their grandfather's house. But Liz only wants a complete family, and besides, her grandfather has severe violent tendencies and once behaved inappropriately toward her aunt. Yet her mother has no other choice if she wants to live, and resolutely walks down a one-way road from one darkness into another, with tears filling her eyes and confusion weighing on her heart. The already fragile family bond begins an endless drift. After her mother leaves, her daily meals are reduced to soaked biscuits, and even that kind of life soon becomes a luxury, because after staying away from school for too long, the teacher really does report her to child services. To avoid legal responsibility, her father not only shifts all the blame onto Liz, but also packs her bags on the side. Just like that, a girl whose parents are still alive becomes a true orphan, and her life simply moves from one swamp into another. At the care facility, she is forced to do the dirtiest and most exhausting work, and at meal times, she must use her body to receive bowls of scalding hot soup. These children who share similar pain never show compassion for one another, instead venting their own misfortune onto someone just like themselves. Once, Liz witnesses a girl pour bleach into someone else's shampoo to get revenge, and seconds later, piercing screams echo through the bathroom, and through her entire childhood. Years later, as she enters adolescence, she finally leaves the suffocating facility behind. Yet her longing for her mother never fades. She gathers her courage and walks into her grandfather's home, only to see her coming downstairs to throw out the trash. And after such a long separation, they exchange no real greeting, merely passing by each other with heavy longing in their hearts. On the second floor, her sister walks toward her and gives her a long-lost hug, but the truth spoken afterward leaves Liz unable to understand it at all.
Don't expect too much. She's dying.
Before she can grasp its meaning, her mother appears under the dim lights with a smile, and after 7 years apart, they embrace tightly, a sense of reunion filling the narrow 4-meter-wide hallway. They revisit unfamiliar affection on familiar streets, and the brief companionship allows her to forget the suffering in her memories, replaced instead by the beautiful moments of childhood.
Yeah, I was a good mom, wasn't I?
Yeah, Mom. What if Dad went off drugs too? Wouldn't that be great? Maybe we could even go back to University Avenue.
Poor Liz still dreams of rebuilding the family, but her mother hesitantly tells her that her father was evicted due to unpaid rent and sent to a shelter, and all traces of the past were discarded by him, including the encyclopedias that once helped Liz achieve perfect scores. Before the mother and daughter can even reminisce properly, her mother makes an excuse to leave, and sensing something strange, Liz follows her and discovers her at a bar, lost in strong alcohol. It turns out that while quitting one addiction, her mother has fallen into another, and Liz's hope that her mother had truly changed shatters in an instant. That night, under the cover of darkness, she quietly climbs back to the old apartment, and everything is just as her mother said. Her father is long gone, all traces of the past erased, and the family of 4 exists only in memory. Her silent gaze in the stairwell feels like the most wordless cry of youth. But no matter how much she clings to the past, life must move forward. With her mother's help, Liz eventually transfers to a new school, where she is no longer shunned or mocked, because 7 years in care not only exposed her to the worst of human nature, but at least taught her to bathe and change clothes every day. During roll call, the teacher calls her Elizabeth, but Liz asks not to be addressed that way, because only when her mother lost control did she use that name. This deeply moves Chris, who carries similar childhood scars, and because of that, they naturally become friends, with Chris also becoming the first real friend Liz has ever had. Guided by Chris, they even secretly throw a holiday party at Liz's grandfather's house, but just as laughter fills the room, Liz's mother staggers in with a weak body, collapses into sickness on the floor, and loudly says she needs a shot. This frightening scene sends the classmates fleeing in panic, leaving only Chris behind to stay with Liz and help care for her mother. Here, Liz openly talks about the hardship she has endured because both of her parents fell into addiction, but Chris says that at least Liz's parents still have some humanity, while her own father struggled with alcohol and behaved inappropriately toward her when she was 7, and although her mother once ran away with her, she was forced by life to take her back into her father's cage. Seeing that Chris's experience is even more tragic than her own, Liz invites her to secretly stay at her grandfather's house, but these quiet plans are overheard by her grandfather when he comes home from work.
Your mother's dying. Your piece of trash father walked out and stuck me with a lot of yous. Did I ask for this in my old age? Did I?
After that, the more he thinks about it, the angrier he becomes, and he ends up throwing Liz out of the house as well. Late at night, the two sit on the silent streets imagining their future, one having a home but unable to return, the other having no home at all, and after struggling with their thoughts, they decide to stay together and begin a new life of relying on each other. From that moment on, they disappear from school, spending their days asking passersby for kindness on crowded streets, and only lying down on subway benches late at night to shed the exhaustion of the day. If hunger becomes unbearable, they go to supermarkets to find a way to survive without money. If the dirt becomes too much to endure, they go to classmates' homes to wash away the grime of the world. Along the road they travel, there is hardship and delay, but the companionship of friendship becomes a resting place for weary souls, allowing them to hide all past joys and sorrows, send away the unease in their hearts, soften the passing years in dim hallways, block out the noise at each stop along the way, and blur the ugliness of the past in the hazy night, with each other by their side, lighting the rest of their lives. It seems they can face any misfortune or hardship that life throws at them, but the lonely mother has no constant companionship of friendship or family, and now she is consumed by the consequences of her own indulgence, Ending up in critical condition, Liz looks at her beloved mother with pain and helplessness, countless words rising to her lips, yet only one sentence remains.
I love you, Mom. I love you.
She once believed that as long as her mother quit drinking, everything could return to how it was, but a few days later, when she walks into the bar to check whether her mother is still drinking, she finds her usual seat piled with money, donations collected by other patrons to cover her debts. From them, Liz learns that her mother passed away yesterday morning, and unable to accept it, she runs out of the bar in a frenzy, yet can never outrun death. Many times, partings arrive like sudden storms, but in truth, they have long been hidden within distant thunder and quiet raindrops. Her mother's long-standing self-destructive habits seem to have already foreshadowed an early ending to her life. On the morning of the final farewell, a yellow taxi carrying memories arrives late, and heavy footsteps drag a weakened body slowly forward. Her mother lies in a simple coffin, marked only with a name. No detailed life story, and not many people come to see her off. Most of them faces Liz recognizes. Once everyone has arrived, the cold grandfather hurriedly pulls her sister away, unwilling to stay even 1 second longer, because this free funeral has no priest and no prayers, and the ceremony is already over. After that, Aunt Eva, the neighbor who collects recyclables, gives Liz a warm hug and leaves in a hurry, followed by Liz's classmates, and only Chris stays with Liz until the end, thoughtfully writing a message on the coffin, even though it holds little meaning, and their friendship is also coming to an end. Chris grows tired of a life spent hiding and wandering every day, and decides to go to an orphanage to live a stable life. Now only Liz remains in front of the grave, staring at her mother's coffin for a long time, unable to recover, and finally choosing to lie down against it, quietly feeling the last trace of her mother's presence. Fragments of distant memories replay again and again, as if withered happiness is being broken into pieces and scattered along the road toward oblivion. She lingers in those memories, refusing to stand up, until workers force her away with heavy machinery. When the soil is completely leveled, she will never see any trace of her mother again, because a free burial does not come with a gravestone. As she leaves, she looks back again and again, filled with reluctance, spending a long time in the car reflecting on the past and the future, until she finally realizes that she cannot continue drifting and sinking like this, and that only by changing can the suffering of the past stop repeating itself in her life. With returning to school standing before her as the best, and only, path forward. After much consideration, she turns to the kind-hearted Aunt Eva for help.
I want to go to school. I don't want to be an idiot.
With Aunt Eva's support, Liz finally finds a private school willing to accept her, but on her first day, she arrives late because of the long distance. When she reaches the school, the principal has already begun the interviews, and the assistant decisively rejects the late-arriving child. But Liz argues her case using local education regulations.
I read the brochure. Intensive student participation for the development of a just community. I just need one chance.
You can wait and talk to David.
In the end, she gets an interview form, and seeing the topic about dreams, her thoughts flow freely, because even while standing in the gutter, she has never stopped looking up at the stars. After the first round of interviews ends, Liz approaches the principal and asks for 30 seconds to introduce herself, and although he is busy, he still gives her the chance. As soon as she enters, Liz frankly lays out the misfortunes of her family background, and then expresses her determination to change her situation.
About how laid back I've been. I mean, I've never even really been to school, except for the 8th grade. But
Well, your grades are very good in elementary school.
I'm smart. I know I can succeed. I just need the chance. I need the chance to climb out of this place that I've been born in. I mean...
She says plainly that since birth, her world has been filled with anger and exhaustion, an environment that constantly pulls people toward the abyss. But she knows there is a better world beyond it, and a life worth longing for in the future, one she intends to pursue for the rest of her life. The principal asks why she only wants to seek change now, and Liz honestly explains that her mother passed away not long ago, and that this felt like a harsh wake-up call, because she had always imagined her mother would improve and be cared for by her, yet reality so often stands in stark contrast to hope.
she'd never taken care of me. I took care of her. She was my baby. But now she's gone.
Now it's time to take care of yourself.
Perhaps her tragic background moves the principal, or perhaps her determination to change wins his favor. But in the end, Liz is successfully admitted. However, enrollment procedures require a guardian to be present in person, so Liz has no choice but to go to a local shelter to find her father. After many turns, she finally sees her father at an abandoned basketball court, 8 years having turned his hair gray, though his habit of never being without a book has never changed. In truth, her father is a man with an exceptional memory for knowledge, yet addiction has drained all of his spirit and strength. After understanding Liz's simple request, her father readily completes the enrollment paperwork for her. After leaving the school, their conversation still lingers in childhood memories, and Liz admits that her father was the most fascinating presence in her early world, because when everyone around them spoke only of negativity and despair, it was her father alone who took Liz to read books and guided her toward the doorway of knowledge. And for that reason, she feels only love for him, never hatred.
I love you, Dad.
Don't do that. Don't love me. It's a waste of energy.
As a penniless man with nothing left, the only thing he can give his daughter now is a bit of humble encouragement.
Stay in school. I blew this. But you can do this.
Watching her father's figure fade into the distance, deep emotion reddens Liz's eyes. Yet staying too long in past memories only leads one astray from the future, and wiping away tears to keep moving forward is the best way to make peace with what has been. With a clear sense of purpose, Liz begins to devote herself fully to studying, yet the principal who personally approved her admission can never remember her name, and always calls on her to answer first in class, as if deliberately putting her on the spot. Feeling confused, Liz goes to the principal to ask why, and he tells her, "I know your past, and the reason I do this is simply to make everyone stand on your side." Deeply moved by his words, Liz knows that the only proper way to repay this kindness is to work even harder. From that point on, her tireless figure often appears in the silent offices late at night, which greatly surprises the principal on night duty. And when he asks why she always seems to have endless homework, Liz explains that she has enrolled in 15 courses, because she wants to complete all high school requirements within 2 years and graduate early.
You're gonna kill yourself, you know.
No. Now I'm gonna live.
After that night, Liz pushes herself even harder, studying thoughtfully on the subway and continuing her efforts in restaurant kitchens. Having nothing may be the strongest reason to strive, because only by giving everything can time pass with fewer regrets, and only through persistence can the journey of life remain full of hope. Sometime later, the principal announces that the school will send the top 10 students to visit Boston, and Liz assumes she has no chance.
No way am I one of the top 10 students.
Well, you're not one of the top. You're the top.
Holding the Boston brochure in her hands, Liz can hardly believe it, because she has always thought of herself as worthless. But the principal tells her she is not worthless at all, and at least when it comes to learning, she should consider going to college. The final destination of the Boston trip is Harvard University, where historic buildings bear the marks of time, refined musicians perform beside tall pines, and passers-by on the streets radiate confidence and youthful spirit, making the place feel untouchable to Liz. Yet the principal tells her this is merely the illusion created by a prestigious setting, and in truth, they are just ordinary people like her. They are diligent like you, and they race against time just like you.
It would be a reach. It's not impossible.
However, for Liz, the high tuition of Harvard feels even more unreachable than an acceptance letter, and most scholarships in society are little more than a drop in the bucket. Just as she forces a helpless smile, an assistant hands her information about a New York Times scholarship program, which offers $12,000 each year, but the requirements are extremely demanding, requiring top grades in every subject and an essay about the most important gains in life and how hardships were overcome. With only one winner chosen from tens of thousands of applicants each year, for this scholarship and for her future, Liz spends several sleepless nights pouring her heart into the essay, and only mails it 4 months later, because that day is her 18th birthday, and the essay is a coming-of-age gift to herself. Her sincere effort is not wasted, and soon Liz receives an interview invitation for the New York Times scholarship. On the day of the interview, she goes to her sister and asks to borrow a suitable coat, and without hesitation, her sister takes off her own jacket, showing that their bond has never faded despite years apart, because they have always loved each other deeply. However, after Liz steps outside, she runs into Chris, who has just been turned away from the orphanage, and in panic and desperation, Chris begs Liz for help, but Liz explains that she has an important interview, and after it ends, they can go to school together. They both carry unfortunate lives, yet Liz chooses to swim against the current in hardship, while Chris chooses to drift with it. After leaving Chris, Liz quickly arrives at the New York Times building, and during the interview, she honestly says that her greatest gain is the courage to face reality, a courage that came from her parents, because even though they failed in many ways, she never once doubted the love between them.
I loved my mother so much. She was a drug addict. She was an alcoholic. She was legally blind. She was schizophrenic. But I never forgot, even if she did, all the time.
Hearing this, the judges are moved to tears, because someone dragged into darkness by her parents not only strives relentlessly, but still loves them deeply, and such strength is rare in this world. In the end, Liz successfully wins the scholarship, and no matter how thick the clouds, there will always be a moment when the sky clears. Half a year later, Liz is admitted to Harvard University with outstanding results, scoring 95 in every subject. At the awards ceremony, a reporter asks how she did it, and she says it all comes down to her parents, because they took away every sense of security and every escape from her life early on, forcing her to give everything she had in pursuit of something better. And from this perspective, all the past hardships became unexpected gifts.
So you were lucky. But is there anything you'd change if you were able?
I'd give it back. All of it. If I could have my family back.
This is a true story, and the protagonist's full name is Liz Murray, once praised as a miracle girl who moved an entire nation, and the film was adapted from her autobiography Breaking Night, faithfully recreating her childhood suffering, though its one flaw is downplaying her effort, making her success seem easier than it truly was. Perhaps that was the director's intention, because the film was never meant to teach us how to get into Harvard, but to remind us not to sink into hardship. I do not believe suffering itself is a gift, but I do believe that those who have crossed storms and seasons, endured trials, and tasted every flavor of life become more vivid and clear in spirit. I also believe that no pain truly disappears without a trace, yet some memories can be forgiven, because what we call regret may be a form of growth, and the wounds we once carried will eventually become the light that guides us forward. In the new year, let us say goodbye to the weight of the past, settle the memories that rise and fall with the wind, and move steadily toward our ideals in the face of new beginnings.